Hi, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I am Ozma in the Dark, and I am with Ozma in the Dark with she, they pronouns. Why not? Let's just do introductions that way. How are you, Christy?
I am fine. She, her, vicious bitch. You know, as you know.
And how about you, Perfict?
I'm fine, doing fine, and he, him pronouns.
And finally, we have a guest. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin. I run the YouTube channel Jangles, ScienceLad. I use he, him pronouns. I am doing wonderful this evening.
Well, that's good. So, tonight, and I can neither confirm nor deny that I sorted out topics very close to last minute. We're just talking about the nature of debate. You debate stuff a lot, Jangles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
That's a perfectly valid way to start talking about topics. Absolutely keeps things on our toes. So...
Yeah.
We need a volume from you, though. with apologies, you were good right up until just.
Oh yeah, I switched my mic to the decent mic. Is this a little better?
Oh, okay.
Just a little better.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think a lot of things with debate in general is because I'm not super familiar with all the aspects of debate. I mean, I know a little bit. But it's hardly been a focus for me. And it made me really curious what the goals are for the thing.
So debate is especially online debates. It's really difficult to nail down what your actual goals are. So the stated goals, like everybody I think is familiar with the 40-40-20 rule. Kind of this completely made up thing. Everybody who's familiar in online debate circles. So the 40-40-20 rule would be that so on most issues, you got 40% of the people who are going to be entrenched on one side, 40% who are going to be entrenched on the other side, and that 20% in the middle who aren't decided, who are actually listening and might have their opinions swayed either way. That's who you're shooting for. I think that's an okay way to approach debate. But there's also, there's never going to be a single goal that you want to get out of a debate. It's always going to be contextual. It's always going to depend on who you're talking to. It depends on the framing of it. I think a perfectly valid reason to do debate is to make your side feel good. Like it's almost like it's good to see your team win. It makes you feel good. So I think a perfectly valid reason to approach a debate is to try to win and try to make everybody who believes in what you believe feel good about, we have a lot of strong arguments and they don't. And that's selfish to a certain extent, but I think that's a perfectly valid reason to do some debates. But of course, the ultimate goal is to convince people with superior arguments and to show that you've done your research and they haven't, and your position is better supported with better reasoning and better argumentation.
Okay. Christy, Perfict, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's pretty much
it.
it.
I did. That it's kind of contingent on, as long as it's contingent on the idea of presenting good arguments or better arguments. There are people who go into debates where really they're just preaching to the choir. Mm-hmm. Their arguments are not convincing or good unless you already agree with them.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that is where I think that's where a lot of people who do debates, that's not what they say they're doing, but that is kind of how they're performing. They're performing to the people who already agree with them. They're saying the things that they know are gonna get their fans and get their supporters riled up and feel good. And again, that's not. I don't think that's inherently a terrible thing, but it's also not going to be a productive thing. So if your goal is to convince people who maybe don't know a lot about the topic, or even someone who disagrees with you, to show that your side has actually a ton of evidence behind it, the argument and your argumentation, reasoning is solid, it requires a different approach. And I think a lot of people are just stuck in the former camp, just preaching to the choir, getting your fans feeling good and riled up, and never bother to alter their rhetoric or change their approach in a way that will actually benefit people, which is ultimately, I think, what we're here to do. So any sort of advocacy, I mean, that's what your ultimate goal is. You don't want to talk to the people who already think like you. That's not really what advocacy is. It's about getting people who don't think like you to start thinking like you.
Well, yeah. So one of the curious things is, obviously, if someone is looking at who looks better in the debate and not thinking about every single aspect of the debate, the honesty levels, anything like that, and just who looks better, like, I mean, that goes back to the focus of what your goals are when you're trying to debate. And I would think that would involve various different debating styles if you're trying to actually change someone's mind.
Oh yeah. Ultimately, it does come down to who looks better at coming at the other side of a debate, as to who wins, and that does require, that has like three approaches. Like there's three aspects to looking good in a debate, or even just looking good in any sort of argumentation or rhetorical capacity. So this applies to if you're writing an essay, or if you're making a video, or anything like that. The three aspects of it that are important are your character. So how much someone likes you. Oddly enough, you do have to come off as likable. You have and this is where a lot of people so you'll have one debate, and everybody on the other camp is saying like, oh, my person won because I already like them. And then the other side is saying the same thing, oh, my person won because I already like them, because character is extremely important. You're not going to hear the same argument from two people, one of which you dislike and one of which you like. You're not going to hear that argument and treat it the same. So it's important to be likable. So character is important. The second one is emotion. So you have to actually evoke emotions in the audience, or if you're trying to speak directly to the other person, you want to evoke some sort of emotion with them. So just using facts and data, just using facts and logic isn't enough. They actually have to care about those numbers in order for what you're doing to be effective. So you have to appeal to some sort of morality or emotion or something like that. And the last one is the logic. And that logic can refer to, and it doesn't just refer to studies and evidence, although that is important, but the things you say have to logically lead to your conclusion. So you have to have premise, and those premises lead logically to a conclusion they are ultimately trying to make. So it is really complicated, but I think all of us have experience in that, because we've all talked to people. We all have experiences like arguing with other people, and have, I think, a little bit of a notion of what tends to work and what doesn't. And this is just an easy way to conceptualize it if you're actually talking about what a debate is.
I mean, the same thing would be true of a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any sort of rhetoric.
Yeah. I think one of the things, if you can't be good and you don't have facts and logic on your side, tear the other person down, which is not a road I would think to take, but apparently somebody thought it was a great. Two people at least that you've debated thought it was.
Uh-oh.
I have personally found that a lot of times, if you address the other person's argument or the failings of it, and you say, how does that support what your proposition? How does that in any way undermine my proposition. Why are we talking about that at all? Why are you bringing this in?
Yeah.
You get accused of being some sort of rules lawyer.
Yeah, like, oh,
Bringing that rationality and logic to this argument. What are you doing?
what are you doing?
Well,
I'm gonna appeal to the ref.
I mean, that in itself is a deflection of sorts, because I, at the very least, get the impression that what comes to a lot of the arguments used, it's very much focused on, or a lot of conservative arguments seem to be focused on tearing people down and saying stuff, even if it's complete lies, saying it confidently.
Yep. So
well, let's stop talking about this in generalities. Let's talk about the real issue. What are we going to do about the bathrooms?
What are we going to do about the bathrooms?
Oh God.
So something I think, so studying debate a little bit and reading up on rhetoric is really, it's really interesting in and of itself, but it also helps you understand why TERFs especially use the rhetoric that they do. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to logically follow, and they don't need evidence because they're appealing to that emotion. And one of the reasons that a lot of people will just attack character, because like I said, character is an important part of, you know, taking someone seriously and listening to their argument. So if you can tear down their character, you can make it so that other people are going to be less likely to listen to them. And so understanding why they're doing that and why it's effective to the people that they're talking to. I'm not necessarily saying it's good. It isn't. But the important part is it's good for some people. It is convincing some people. And so recognizing why they're using that emotionally loaded language and not referencing any data or studies. So the TERF, the entire TERF appeal to evidence is to list off the same like 3 or 4 instances that have happened over the course of like 10 years, list the same 3 or 4 over and over and over, reduce it back to the most absurd straw man that they can attack. It's like, I can't believe that I'm getting attacked just because I don't want males going into changing rooms and assaulting little girls. They have to reduce it to that because it gives that emotional weight to it. Yeah. And for the logic and evidence side of things, well, biology. That's the extent of their knowledge of biology, is to know to say the word. And that's like, yeah, I just invoked biology.
I disagree. They've got at least a kindergarten level of biology.
There you go. Yeah, the kindergarten level, maybe one step above that. But if you ask them to like substantiate anything, they're just like, it's basic biology.
One person I know on Twitter who was talking about was just sort of tearing into somebody for going through a script, and the next person who came at me with something, I went and looked at her the one page of the person who came after me, not my friend, and it was entirely the script. It was like just the script. It was everything. I have seen every single one of these arguments before in almost exactly these same words. It's like, yep. It's a pile of things.
Yeah, so if you are involved in an issue, and you do tend to see the same arguments pop up over and over because people will latch on to the arguments that they find convincing, and they'll repeat those verbatim, sometimes not even really understanding why they're saying it, but just that because it seems to be effective. And yeah, you'll start to go off of a script. I mean, all of us use a script in some sense. There's like a really, really popular theory in psychology called script theory. I think it's called script theory. I could be misrepresenting the name, but I know the concept, that basically yes. We go off of scripts. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's not the right name, but I will know it by the end of I will remember it by the end of the.
There you go.
Yeah, there's obviously very, the brain does tend to generalize things because you can't remember everything. So people need to shorthand, and most people aren't actually trying to study how to debate logically or by any of the debate rules. They're just studying, it's just easier to repeat what other people have said.
Yeah, it's like everything
it's-
they say, instead of building to something, like building a base of premises with, backed up by evidence that leads to a conclusion, they view debate as who can score the most points. Like everything you say, that's a point. And if you say the most things, you win because you have the most points. And that's, some people approach debates that way. It can be effective. That's why gish galloping's a thing.
Are you talking about the Ben Shapiro approach?
Yep. There's a reason people use it. If you talk fast and get in a lot of points, it can seem like it doesn't matter if it's almost like a Mel Brooks style of comedy. Like you just go joke after joke after joke. And if one didn't work, doesn't matter. You're already on to the next one. So it's an effective tool to convince some people, because if you just have more, that must mean you just know everything there is to know. And the person who is debating against you, or someone who's responding to you, it's always going to take much, much longer to debunk a single point. Like you're not going to be able to remember and respond to everything they say as quickly. And so it's a really good, really shady and pretty crappy way to debate someone, but it's effective. And
heuristics is what you was a subset of heuristics analysis.
There you go.
I knew I'd remember it. It just it's gonna take me.
So how do you think that people would end up? Because obviously, in an ideal world, people would end up figuring stuff out based off of facts and logic, but you see this among various aspects of the atheist community, where you'd think there would be debate arguments based off of facts and logic, and instead it appeals to they make similar appeals sometimes. Some people in the atheist community, which is just so weird to me. And I'm honestly not sure what aspect of society, what needs to be changed. Is there anything that you can do with regards to debate that can help that in any way, shape, or form?
Now, ideally, we would use facts and logic more when coming to opinions, but unfortunately, we never really. You have to care about something. Those other two, so character and emotion, those are just as important, if not more important. It's not just bringing studies to the table; it's making people care about those studies. So, something that I've been guilty of in the past, and I'm trying to get a little bit better at, is just if I just have all the facts and present them, that'll convince people. Well, that's not the most effective way to do things, because people don't really think like that. They don't just analyze a number like a computer and then spit out the right answer. You have to also appeal to their emotions and appeal to their humanity and make them want to care about what these studies and numbers say. And having this, now that's not to say that the studies and evidence are unimportant. They certainly are. It's still very good to look like you know what you're talking about and actually know what you're talking about. Both those things are important equally. But you have to appeal to someone. You have to appeal to someone else's emotions and make them want to change their mind. So.
Well, the so-called hitch slap was it's one of those things that always bothered me. It's like, oh, don't do that. Because all it's doing, you're alienating the other side.
Oh yeah, you're making yourself and the people who like you feel good, and that's why he did it. That's why he did it. It was never about convincing other people.
Well,
but there's also a lot to it that's not just the arguments. I'm just thinking about that. That when John F. Kennedy debated Nixon, and they've done things where if people read the transcripts, they feel that it was pretty much a draw. But if they watch it, they overwhelmingly Kennedy won.
Yeah. Yeah. Again,
and that was because he brought his own makeup artist. Kennedy hired a television director to help with picking out his outfits, so he'd look good on television.
Mm-hmm.
And Nixon wouldn't wear makeup. He said it was feminine.
Yep.
And he wouldn't wear makeup, and so he came out looking like a ghost. And so he came off poor on television.
Yep. So that's part of a rhetorical strategy, like looking good, appearing confident, speaking well, or at least attempting to speak well. Sometimes I never get to the speaking well part, but I try to. That's enormously important when you're trying to be rhetorically effective. So it's not just the facts and logic. As much as we like to pretend it is, even like Ben Shapiro was never about facts and logic.
Oh, yeah.
What he was about was appearing to care about facts and logic. So that statement wasn't about the facts. It was about his character and the emotional appeal to thinking that you know the right answer. There's an emotional appeal to that as well. So it's the actual reasoning and studies and evidence he uses are almost always terrible, because especially like those famous so there was a really famous video of him going around a couple of years ago where he's like talking to this terrified college students and just smacking down on her and spouting a bunch of terrible statistics about trans people. So I'm sure if y'all have
the why aren't you 61?
That video.
Here.
Something that is at least comforting about TERFs is that they have like 4 studies that they always use, and they always misuse in the exact same way. So as long as it doesn't take a whole lot of research to understand their sources, and the arguments that they make and the arguments that Ben Shapiro made, it was very clear that they did not understand the studies that they were reading, but that didn't matter. In the moment, no one was familiar with those studies. No one knew how to instantly debunk them. And no one, when someone brings up, according to a study done in Sweden, this happens, no one's going to be like, hold on, before you go on, let me Google. All right, Sweden study.
What study was abstract.
That? It was the one where he gets 13 or not 19 times higher than the general population for
it's I haven't been able to find the one that says what he wants it to say.
And it does not say what he wanted it to say. In fact, in that study itself, they said, hey, after 1989, these statistics came more in line with the general population due to increased acceptance, better healthcare, and a bunch of other factors that happen with linear time. But since the entire data block had this conclusion, so I guess I'm just going to pretend that that's applicable now because he's dishonest, but it didn't matter. He looked like he had a study on his side. He looked like he had facts on his side, and that's way more important than actually having facts on your side. At least it was in that case.
Well, I have a particular. Okay, so I'm just gonna sit here and every time you say something, I'm going to say you're off the subject. I'm going to roll my eyes and pretend I know what I'm talking about. That particular. What do you think? Is that a useful?
It can be. Hey,
well, the other thing is,
sorry,
Ben Shapiro is really excellent at introducing things sideways. When he says, if he said, my information is based on facts, that would invite people to say, really? What are those facts? But he says, facts don't care about your feelings. And he just said, my information is my conclusions are based on facts. Your conclusions are not based on facts. But he introduces it in a way that it doesn't get challenged either of those things.
Oh yeah, that's why he doesn't actually debate people. That's why he's stuck to incredibly unbalanced scenarios in which he had just way more power and control over the conversation. It's in all of those clips, and this is why it was picked up and used as a conservative like strategy. Always have an opportunity where if someone is going to challenge you, someone can take the mic away from them, and you have the power and control in that scenario, because it's just you never do that. By the way, if you ever have the opportunity to go and ask questions at a conservative event, never do it. It is not, you will not own them. All right, they are in that position of power for a reason, and that's also why he doesn't do any sort of debate anymore. Like I'm surprised his career didn't end after that when he went over and talked to, I forgot his name, the British journalist who gave him the very slightest bit of pushback. He couldn't take it.
Yeah, the British journalist who was the conservative journalist.
Yeah.
Yes, the famously conservative journalist.
Famously conservative.
Yeah.
Gave him the slightest bit of pushback, like, no, I'm gonna rip off my microphone and stomp away like a big boy.
Well, The one I was asking about specifically was obviously the Milo thing, or I Hypocrite, who twice now has basically said, well, "You're an asshole. You're just mean to me," and
yeah, they cannot take what they dish out. I'll be 100% honest and say that I was mean in those debates more so than normal, but I mean, they are slippery people, and someone trying to make them stick onto the topic and stay honest with their sources appears mean to them because they're not used to it. They just can't take it.
Well, I mean, I suppose famous or infamous or however, no bullshit with Destiny, which was basically, I thought I Hypocrite and no bullshit were probably the same person, but they probably aren't.
Yeah, they are very good about. I mean, they're good at what they do, which is dumb things down and say things without saying them. So I Hypocrite knows what he's doing. Like he there's a reason that he'll take screenshots of articles and post them with no words, because one, what the article said doesn't matter, else he'll put a link to it, and two, if he doesn't say any words, he can't get in trouble for what he knows his audience is going to read into that. And so he's dumb and a coward.
Yeah, so I suppose that goes into another thing that I hear conservatives do a lot, which is the not saying it but heavily implying it thing, where it's like they say everything. White nationalists, for instance, will say everything but they want to segregate, they want black people to leave the country or whatnot, and they're like, I didn't say that, but I said everything to suggest that that is the best option.
So
and oftentimes that completely disregards ethics.
Yeah, because it gives them that plausible deniability. They never said the thing, but they gave they presented all the premises that very logically led to a conclusion. Jordan Peterson was bad about this too. He'll give you a bunch of premises that are true, and he's just stating facts. But he knows like what logically people are going to take from the premises, but he'll never say the conclusion.
Well, except for all the stuff that gets completely and totally wrong. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Except for all that stuff, but
and the neo-Nazi propaganda aspects that Jordan Peterson,
which is
does.
Also, but he never comes out and says anything, so you can't accuse him of that.
Also, I mean, specifics from behavioral psychology, stuff that he had to have his degrees have known, and he gets it so massively wrong.
It's fine. He just says
you can just prove he's wrong by Googling it.
Yeah.
If you say Carl Jung enough, you can get away with everything. It's a proven fact.
It's a proven fact.
I believe you now.
If you say Carl Jung enough, you'll fall into a dream state.
You fall into a dream state where you understand the world.
No, nobody.
Nope.
Nobody got that one.
Well, I did.
I refuse to dignify that with a laugh.
That's not fair.
Actually, that leads to comedy. So humor I promise this will relate back to what we were just talking about. I promise. Yeah. Yes. Comedy is rhetoric. It's one of the other thing that I'm known for. So debates, transitions, and comedy. I love comedy. I've done a lot of research on comedy. There's actually a lot of scientific studies done on comedy. Mm-hmm. And I'm very convinced humor is rhetoric. And what's really interesting about comedy is that you are trying to lead someone to a conclusion without saying it. Like, you want them to connect the dots in their head, or else it's not funny. I mean, one of the best ways to kill a joke is to explain it. So you are trying to set up premises in a joke that the audience or the listener is going to connect in their own head, and that's what makes it funny, because they've put the pieces together. They're almost like an active participant in the rhetoric. They're doing the thinking, and that's why comedy is really engaging.
Well, I will say there is one exception, which is when you explain the joke, and that is the joke is that you didn't do a good joke and you're explaining the entire joke that you made.
Yeah, but unless you explain that you're explaining it, you're still doing the connecting the dots, right?
Well, yeah.
You just go one level deeper every time.
The aristocrats.
There's random
being
humor as well.
amused.
Yeah.
People like being amused and they like being funny.
Mhm.
When you say something that's funny, that amuses them. They remember what you said better. They also like to be funny themselves. They're going to repeat what you said. They may mess it up, but they're going to try it. They're going to be repeating it. You get repetition past the event of your saying it by being funny. It's one of the best ways of getting it because it gets contagious, and you can get them to go out and be representing you in that way. And as well as you can steal somebody else's progress. They say something and it's funny, and you step in and you explain why that was funny, and it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, that's a little tip. The best way to the best way to kill a joke, even for the people who like get it, especially if it's like a racist or transphobic joke, just explain the joke. Just explain, like, here's the premise of the joke. Here's the inversion of expectations, and this is why the joke is funny. It'll kill the mood. So there's this entire art form of comedy that is doing the thing that right-wingers are doing, which is having the premises and making sure that the person is going to connect those premises to come to a conclusion in their own head. So it's not like this is a weird or hard to do thing. You know, if you have enough experience doing it, it can come pretty naturally, because you know, especially if you know your audience, that's incredibly important. So with political correctness doesn't mean being nice to people. Political correctness is audience specific, and it is saying things to appeal to the audience. That's all that means. It's not saying things to upset your audience and saying things that they are going to like. That's what political correctness means. And so if you know your audience, so if you know you're Trump and you're talking to your fans, you know what kind of like things that you can say that they're really going to agree with, and you never have to come out and say the racist things, although he certainly does. But I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. But they're also going to take it that a couple steps deeper. Like, Minnesota, I think it was Minnesota. Like, y'all got good genetics. It's like a racehorse. Y'all have great genetics. They kind of know what he's talking about there, but he never came out and said. And that's why you're genetically superior to the people.
And then he went into the Somalian thing. So, which one of the tools would be, when you're going to the next subject, connect the two subjects, but don't connect them. It's look like you're wandering and like you're hitting a different subject entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Because going right from this to the Somalian thing, from making that joke, was not. It was actually clever. The way he did it.
Yeah, it's not subtle, but it's not explicit. So.
Yeah.
And I don't accuse Trump of being clever. Ever before. I don't think. Yeah, ever.
He's good at appealing to the crowd. He is unironically one of the most politically correct presidents ever. In that sense, he knows that.
Yeah, and that relates to some of the ways that conservative people make fun of liberal people, like calling people snowflakes and all that stuff. Definitely applies to conservative people as well, because ultimately it's just people getting upset by the statements being made.
Yeah, everybody gets upset at things. Everybody gets offended at things. If you're like, this is not a left or right thing. It is like a human nature thing. We get upset when we see things we don't like. That's just what happens. But doesn't matter if it's true or not. If you can make the appearance that this group over here, this entire political side of the political spectrum, are just snowflakes who can't take it when people have different opinions. And you turn back on them. Well, what are your opinions? I have my opinions. My opinion is I'm being silenced. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that makes me really curious about when it comes to I guess the presentation of facts. and whatnot, because I think just in general, people only have a limited amount of education about any specific subject. So most of the people watching likely know jack about what's being talked about in a debate, or very little. And so so how exactly I guess how do you be true, how can you be true to your general fact-based argument and also dumb it down?
So my day job is I'm a teacher, and that's my job description right there. So something that we learned, so when I was taking classes for teaching and prepping for my career about that, is it does not matter how much you know. It does not matter how correct you are. It doesn't matter the breadth of your knowledge in any given field. What matters in your role as a teacher is conveying to another person. And so you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. That requires a lot of empathy, and you need to make them learn and understand one thing at a time. So oftentimes when you're speaking to a class, it's saying the same thing 4 or 5 different ways. It's using a lot of analogies. So trying to relate it back to something that they probably already do know, and how this is similar to this new concept that you want them to learn. And it's not, duplicitous. It's not dishonest to that. It's effective communication, and it's important. So when you're a teacher, it's really important to be able to reach someone where they're at and to change their mind. I mean, literally, that's what you're doing. You're changing their mind by making them learn something. And it's that same kind of approach is also true in debate. Now, oftentimes that's a lot harder because you're probably not going to change the other person's mind. No one is going to admit on air, especially if it's a public debate, that they're wrong. And it's hard to appeal unless you're very familiar with their audience and really familiar with the political space. It's hard to appeal to people who you can't see or hear or meet or in real life. So, but it still can be done. And for good, effective debate, if your goal is actually to win people over, that's kind of what you have to do. You have to not dumb things down, but simplify them. What is important about the studies that you've read, and have them in the back of your mind to be able to pull more from, but make it simple. Repeat your main thesis over and over and over in a bunch of different ways, and be ready to substantiate any point that you make. So a lot of, in almost all of my debates, 90% of the research wasn't used. And in very, very few debates, even when I did reference studies, they were never questioned. But I needed to be able, but the 1 or 2 times that it does happen, what about that study? You need to be able to pull it back up. But the important part was conveying the information in a simple way that someone who isn't familiar with it can understand.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I should have insisted on one piece. Let's try this again, because I had one thing to say and I've completely messed up the way I was going to say it.
Forgot your thesis.
My thesis. No, because I've done the 2 things for the J.K. Rowling now. On the first one, you really gave me you really focused me the way when I was talking to you, and the second one rambles really badly because I didn't seem to know. I had a thesis in it, and it didn't. I don't think it came across very well.
Oh yeah, and we all kind of make those mistakes sometimes. I know, in my opening statement in the Milo debate, my thesis was kind of buried underneath there a little bit. I could have done a lot better, but in general,
Yeah.
Whether it's a thesis, whether it's a written essay, whether it's a video essay, you should have a thesis, a single sentence that you want someone to walk away from, that debate or video or what have you, taking away, which means you need to repeat it over and over. And any supporting points you have, especially when you have the floor, shouldn't be more than 1 or 2 steps removed from the thesis. So it needs to be very cohesive. So if you're arguing for trans rights, for example, against a transphobe, if you're ever in that position, have a constant thesis like, hey, science supports the effectiveness of transitioning. So if you want to have a narrow topic like that, that also helps for a debate. You don't want to debate trans issues. You want to debate more narrow topics than that, because if you just debate trans issues, what is your like single thesis on that, and how easy is it going to be to keep the topic narrow enough for people to walk away from and learning something. So have your thesis statements, have your premises to back it up. Oddly enough, I'm blanking off the top of my head, but have like your three. Yeah, I know. Have your like 3 premises to support the single statement that transitioning is beneficial, and then maybe one more step to support those premises. But keep it really, really simple. And when someone is trying to draw you away from the topic, call it out, pull it back to the topic at hand. Because something that a lot of people will do, right-wingers are really, really good at this. They have their script and they want to stick to their script, is to completely deviate. When they've been routed, when they've been caught in something that they're just regurgitating and they can't back it up at all, they'll immediately act like, well, what about this? So call that stuff out, bring it back. If they look like they're all over the place and you've been consistent the entire time, you're going to look really strong.
Okay.
When you said trans issues, how do you debate that? My first thought was, by framing the argument, I would just simply start with my position.
There you go.
Yes, I think that human rights should be extended to trans people. Do you have some reason you think they shouldn't be?
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I will say something about teachers and changing people's minds. I get the impression that that's more of a thing for high school and elementary school as opposed to college. I get the impression that that people are more likely to go into classes already assuming that the teacher has some knowledge, and it's less about changing minds and actually about teaching the facts. But I don't know what your thought process on that is.
Oh, when I say changing minds, I'm literally like, if they learn something, if they learn that 2 + 2 = 4, you change their mind about something. You introduce something new into their brain and changed it. So it was a little cheeky thing, but that's what I mean by changing minds.
Yeah.
But no matter what. Yeah, and obviously, like how you view the teacher as an authority figure when you're younger, and then you start to question things a little bit more as you get to high school, and then in college, it's not quite. You're definitely not on a level playing field, but it's more about attacking what you already know, and less building more information, but rather questioning what you already know. The method is still the same. The goals of the teacher are still the same: to reach the student where they're at and get them to accept more information and leave the class thinking differently than when they came in. So that's kind of where that broadly applies.
Gotcha.
Interesting. With it, an awful lot of what Jordan Peterson did and that I saw in his lectures, which is what my first exposure to him, he came up as an issue, and I went and looked up his lectures, and I saw what he was doing and saying as being mostly challenging students to argue with him, presenting ideas that were obviously flawed and trying to get people to engage in that way. Turns out, no, these are his genuine crazy ideas. But
he spoke passionately about them, and he looked like he knew what he was talking about because he said it confidently. Unfortunately for everybody involved.
Yeah, that never helps, and definitely if you actually have to think about things, that definitely can make you look less like you know something to some people, despite actually thinking about things means you're taking in information and having an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, the even his lobster hierarchy is incorrect. I mean, it's not how that works, and lobsters are actually a pretty good.
Do you mean to tell me that lobsters' brains don't dissolve and they grow a whole new one?
Well, there's that. There's crustaceans in general will start off in one sex and then end up the other, which is kind of definitely not where he wanted to go.
Well,
it was I mean, it's just a shit that there is Oh, if I apologize for not remembering her name because I try to promote her as much as possible. She's awesome. There is there is a YouTuber who is basically who her degree is in research psychology, and she's been taking that book apart now for like, well, when did it come out? Until I mean, bit by freaking bit.
Which book?
The book, the
Jordan Peterson's book,
The 12 Rules for Life.
That or Maps of Meaning, right?
Well, nobody can take apart Maps of Meaning. It's meaningless.
Ironically enough.
So the 12 Rules for Life, which I've read, and it's full of crazy. It's really full of crazy.
Very badly full of crazy. Have you read Maps of Meaning? Because it's crazier.
I have a copy of it for free, a digital copy. It's
good.
Incomprehensible. Like none of the sentences flow into the next ones. I need a map to understand that book. I need a cheat sheet.
Yeah. Although if we're talking about the things that Jordan Peterson annoyed me on two levels. One, because Carl Jung actually did know about how to, even though he was completely wrong about all his ideas about the nature of psychology, his ideas about when it came to actually helping people were like decently good. And I learned stuff from reading Carl Jung that genuinely helped me. So that pisses me off that Jordan Peterson goes off about Carl Jung without like ignoring the general philosophy. Carl Jung would have hated Jordan Peterson. I can almost guarantee it. He was like someone who's not monogamous and has like sort of weird sexual experiences and like actually cares about people and what is not very judgy. And the other thing that pisses me off about Jordan Peterson is obviously his talk about Crime and Punishment, which is a great book.
Yes!
Which he fucking does not understand. Like, it's about...
Even a little.
It is legit about desperation and doing a not best thing and regretting it because of desperation.
Well, it's what Dostoevsky was doing was the thing that he did. Spoiler alert for anybody who's going to read Crime and Punishment. Okay, but
spoiler. Hold on. People. Has everyone gotten a chance to see it yet, or read it yet?
I've read it. I have a copy of Crime and Punishment. I mean, actually.
Well, you're the odd person out here, there, Justin. What's the deal? You haven't read Crime and Punishment for fun?
Like, what sort of Jordan Peterson fan are you?
What he did, the trick that he did, what was novel and new at the time that he produced it, your window to the world is the main character. And that is, you identify with him, and then it's revealed to you he is insane. You have been joining someone on a trip into madness, going slowly insane.
I wouldn't describe it that way, but I clearly have a different view of Crime and Punishment. I saw it as someone who was desperate, close to poor, and losing all meaning to life because his life sucked, and shit got bad enough, and then he did a bad thing. He snapped and did a bad thing. Well, murdered someone, but that person was not a great person.
Yeah, it's
kind of, and he was the crazy reasoning. And then he takes the crazy reasoning and he attributes that to Dostoevsky, not to the character. This was the character who was making crazy reasoning. He was saying, I oppose the church. Therefore, since the church, I must be an atheist since I oppose the church. The church believes in these things, therefore I must, as an atheist, be opposing them. So since the church says that thou shalt not kill, therefore I must be in favor of killing.
Yeah.
And you go, that's really crazy reasoning. That's part of what was supposed to be your clue that the man was going crazy. And he recognizes that he was mad by the end of it, and that the character does, and that he uses this as being Dostoevsky's real reasoning. He was writing a madman.
Well, at the
Jordan Peterson is using mad reasoning, fictional mad reasoning.
Well, that's what I was going to say. At the end of Maps of Meaning, I realized I was looking through the eyes of a mad person, so I did get that much right. So, you know, I don't know. Yes. The person who's doing the thing, her name is Cass Eris, Casseris, and she is awesome, and everybody should go follow her right now.
Yeah.
I originally followed her on Twitter, and then I'm like, oh, you have a channel? Let's check it out. And she's great.
But anyways,
YouTube channel?
Yes.
Back to debate. The original talking point.
Sorry.
So, no, it's fine. We go off subject all the time. I mean, the second half is technically all fine with going off subject, but that's a whole nother story. I guess, how do you keep I guess the morale of, because I mean, how, like, people's minds could be changed maybe from a debate, or maybe they won't. So, how do you bypass that uncertainty?
You never do. Every debate is scary. Like every debate I've ever done, I've been like terrified for like leading up to it, and like I have to like block out that day. And you never get over the uncertainty. But if you think something's important enough, you'll push through. And so if you believe in your cause enough, and if you've done your research, and you are very certain that you have come to the right conclusions, and you want to share those conclusions with other people, possibly make sure that other people don't like come to the wrong conclusions because they're not aware of the evidence that you have, and you have faith in yourself as a speaker, faith in your ability to convey this information, you push through the uncertainty and you do it anyway.
I mean, that definitely makes sense. I know I don't have a completely relatable example when it comes to pushing through uncertainty. The closest example I have that I think of a lot, with, which is similar, is there was a horror game that I played, and I played all the way through it, and like it takes place in a cruel insane asylum with the like violently insane people or whatever.
You are not narrowing down horror games here.
Fuck.
Outlast?
Yeah. Thank you. So
I got it.
In Outlast, at some point in the story, because I did pay attention to the story and read it, I'm like, these are just all these people, because half of them don't hurt you, and they're just people who have been treated horribly by this cruel situation. And like, I'm like, I want to help these people. I don't want these people to continue to be cruel. And that just like killed any fear of anything but like the super baddie type stuff in Outlast. It's just like any fear of the people. I'm just like I just feel sorry for you guys. Oh, you're trying to go after me to attack me. Yeah, I'll get away, but like you can't help yourself. You're just like in a really shit situation and you've just been broken by it. And
Interesting perspective on how to go through horror games.
well,
That's actually kind of cool.
well, I mean, it was just that particular one is just one the one that stands out that I definitely had that focus in more. Like I'm like certain horror games are still like scary. Alien Isolation is a good example. I mean, that's a monster that I can't really empathize with.
So can we apply this to debate?
Yeah, so that sort
Feeling
of mentality
pathos for your adversary.
I have had a few debates where I just made a noisemaker and threw it on the other side of the room and ran away. So, nothing.
Oh, that'll work too.
Nothing. But I think I get what you're saying. Like trying to that uncertainty and doubts is always going to be a factor. But if you can, I think empathy is incredibly important. I think it takes a much stronger person to be empathetic than it does to just throw all that stuff out the window. And being able to empathize with people who are even like have abhorrent views is really, really tough, but it can help push you through a lot of uncertainty. Like are these people like thinking that these people are reachable and they're not beyond saving and they're not, and you're not going to write them off because they're still people, will help you push through a lot of uncertainty. So
yeah,
I think that's
in at least a couple of cases of debates I've watched of yours, which are all of them, so or all of them that I've found. I've modded one or two, which is a desperate experience. Or chat modded. I don't think I would actually moderate. No, thank you. There's been at least a couple of times where you've made the other person's point for them because they were fumbling it so badly, but not as a gotcha. This is what you're trying to say, just so I can understand it. It was more like a, well, if I understand,
and that's important. So not all of my debates have been complete screaming matches, unfortunately with the exceptions of the ones that people have actually heard of.
Yeah.
But a lot of my debates are with people who have we have a disagreement and we're actually trying to come to a conclusion that we can reach together. And that's important. Like being able to restate someone else's opinion in your own words shows that you're listening. It shows that you're taking their position seriously, because they put a lot of thought into those positions a lot of the time, and it shows that you're willing to try to meet them where they're at. So, and that's important. That's something that we should do when we're not just debating, but anytime we're in like an argument with someone that we love and care about. That active listening and being able to rephrase what they're even if it's just being able to put their problem in your own words is important, and it shows that you actually care about reaching them.
Well, frankly, even your first debate with a hypocrite, not the second one. Even there, you kept trying to give him outs, which were interesting. Every time he'd say something that A, made no sense, and B, also seemed a bit racist. Sexist. No, or transphobic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure he hit all three.
You kept trying to give him outs, and it's one of those, and not as a, because by that time it just seemed you knew that this was just okay, fuck it, this is going to be just, this is going to turn into a shit show, which it did.
The next two debates were definitely much different, but that first one, trying to speak to where they're at, trying to like rephrase their arguments, because you're not just on these debates, you're not just talking to the person, you're also talking to their audience. And something that I've been trying to do more. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask a question about that, which is there are certain things where it's hard to figure out how best to do that morally, because acknowledging there's definitely a concern about acknowledging even their premises is giving it more validity than you think it should.
So yeah, so there has to be some sort of that's a part of the uncertainty. Like if you grant someone a premise that is, especially if it's false and it helps lead people to a bad conclusion, that could be tough. Sometimes it's worth the risk because you can show how even if their premise was true, it doesn't lead to the conclusion they're trying to draw from it. So it's kind of worth it then. And sometimes that should be where you focus your attack anyway. You know, if someone's conclusion, if someone's premise is false, you would say, no, we're stopping here, and let me help you reframe. And because if this premise goes out the window, your conclusion's terrible. So maybe I can help you reframe it because I'm still trying to talk to you. Some concessions are important to show that you're listening and you're not just there to dunk on them. So even if that's conceding like something that is completely uncontroversial, like, yeah, I agree with you that the sky is blue, but you know, and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So we have now reached the 1 hour mark.
Yes, I'm going to get up here and go play video games with my husband.
Okay, so well, if you're going to leave now, I will say two things. One, it was fun playing among you with you and Rico Rams.
Yeah, that was fun.
Earlier.
Among Us is a fun game.
Yeah, sorry. Unrelated, I just wanted to say that. And two, where can people find you?
People can find me on the YouTubes at Jangles ScienceLad. You can find a lot of video essays that I've done. You can find like 20 or something debates. If you want to go watch some of the debates, I think I'm okay at it. Definitely places I could do better, but if debate is something that you're interested in kind of analyzing, or I do a lot of debates about trans issues, so if you ever want to get better about arguing those things, I have a lot of studies. You can follow me on Twitter at SJW Debates. My pinned tweet right now is a research document with more than 50 studies debunking common turf talking points and presenting the immense amount of research and science in support of trans people and their identities and transitionings and things like that. And yeah, that's where you can find me if you want to make that mistake.
Okay.
In the next part of the hour, I wanted to hit first, and I was interested if you had any reflections on Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing. Just because that's big in the news. I mean, that's big news.
I've been trying to stay distracted and busy and not think about it. I think we live in a fantastic system where if one person dies, you know, the entire thing crumbles down, and rights are at stake now. But that's probably fine.
Admittedly, my brain didn't process all the fact that you're only going to be here an hour. I must have forgotten that. There was someone who wanted to call in and talk with you a little bit, but if you
I can do another 10 minutes.
Okay. Sure. Let me give them if everyone's okay with 10 minutes. Yay.
Yay.
By the way, say hi to the green mage for me.
Yes, I will.
The green mage?
It's my husband.
Oh, okay.
So,
this Ruth Bader Ginsburg thing is just, I mean, it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I think it scares
possibilities
a lot of us,
are that things could be really, really horrible. I'm just not confident they can railroad. They can't railroad through another Kavanaugh.
They'll try.
I mean, that seems to be a coin flip.
I
The
will be
Kavanaugh
right.
stuff.
Eliani's coming in. I will be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Sorry for my last minute appearance. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
So, Jangles, I've seen many of your debates. I have a lot of good kudos on you in regards to your debate with Milo Yiannopoulos and all that stuff. And I wanted to address this. So, you can correlate with other people, but I've spoken to both Vadim, Christian his cat, and several other people who are you probably associated with in regards to what I'm about to share with you. But I wanted to take this opportunity real quick because I know I heard you say you got like 10 minutes. So I'm going to try to break this down. One of the biggest things I've been doing work on over the last several years, at least 2 years, is on the narratives of both cancel culture and cultural Marxism. I recently did a debate with Riley Grace Rashong. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Riley.
Yeah, she hung up on me because I guess she got frustrated because I was actually defeating her in that debate. But I'm going to approach this. I'm going to try to respect your time real quick. Do you believe cancel culture is a real thing?
It's so. There is something. There is some aspect of so I did a video and I did a lot of research on othering. There is some validity to the concept that when someone does something bad, we are more likely to diagnose that person as bad. If you want to call that cancel culture, you can. There's research supporting it, but I think cancel culture is like a more broad thing. I don't know. It's hard to say whether or not it's real because it's so amorphous.
Yeah, so I'm going to be just very forward. Cancel culture is a far-right narrative co-opted by leftists right now. And it's very troublesome, and I'm going to tell you why. Cancel culture derives from McCarthyism. There is academic papers showing from sources I can link to you, showing that the actual narrative of cancel culture came from Hollywood back in the 1950s and 60s from McCarthyism. Anyone who spins this narrative is literally spinning a far-right narrative from Nazis. I can show direct evidence correlating this fact.
Okay.
Like recently, Peter Coffin did a video. I don't know if you saw that video about cancel culture. Did you happen to see that?
I did not.
I
know he talks a lot about it though.
Yeah,
Peter
Coffin.
They talk a lot about it.
If you ever get a chance to watch that video, Jangles, he in the very first 2 or 3 minutes of that video, he did a lot of examples of what he correlates to be cancel culture. But every one of his examples directly correlates with a predetermined label that we already currently have in society. So what I mean by that is, if someone is sending you threats saying that you should die or something, what would you label that, Jangles?
Harassment.
Why then? But people are calling it cancel culture. Why aren't we calling harassment then?
I have no idea.
But do you get what I'm trying to say was my argumentation on this? We have clear, distinct labels for certain behaviors that we see perceived online. Yet many people on the left are co-opting what the far right used to be called as modern McCarthyism as cancel culture today, and they're adopting this label for other labels that we already have in the past. So if someone's harassing you or sending you death threats, they're not calling it harassment anymore. They're calling it cancel culture.
I think just based on the way that language evolves, like, I don't, just when you trace the linguistic history of a word or a concept or something like that, there could be some modification to it. I do think there is something that you can talk about how if someone does something that you perceive as slightly wrong, they're diagnosed as a bad person. So, so we would say that negative warmth is diagnostic of a person. The analogy I like to use is if you have a bowl of soup and someone drops just a little bit of pee in it, you now have a bowl of pee. So that's an example I would like to use. And that very much is a thing. So someone says something a little insensitive online, or they have one wrong opinion and you agree with them on 99% of other things. I think there is a problem, especially online, where it's easier to dehumanize people. If we want to call that something else, that's fine. But I think that's what most people are referring to when they say cancel culture.
Yeah, see, I completely concur that labels change, and so do the descriptors of words. But we already have a label from that's been going on for 30 years. It's called call-out culture. We've known about call-out culture since the 1960s. Okay. We've seen this predicated. Yet, again, it's I really recommend you, like, if you ever get a chance, Jingles, just to do the research that I've done on this. Just believe me when I tell you this, and just take it from my what I'm saying here, that the narrative of cancel culture is a false narrative. Anybody who spins this narrative is literally spinning a far right narrative derived from the by the alt right. I can show this because I used to be alt right myself. So that's the reason why I predicate. So the last thing I want to hit you on, Jangles, is cultural Marxism. How versed are you on this narrative?
I'm familiar with it. I wouldn't say I'm anything close to an expert. I haven't done the same kind of research I have on.
It's bad.
Yeah, so me and Alex
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Well, no, it's a lot more extensive than you might imagine, Jangles. So I'm going to put it like this because I know we got about 5 minutes left, and I'm just going to predispose this. Me and Alex did a 2-hour conversation where we went to the entire Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is considered the most anti-Semitic publication ever devised in the 20th century. We went through it, and I showed her direct correlation between that article and what people are defining as woke today. So let me start off with my supposition first. People who use the word woke as a pejorative are using the label as cultural Marxism. They are literally perpetuating an anti-Semitic conspiracy trope against people that they disagree with. So my argumentation is people who use the term woke as a pejorative, for example, people that are social advocates that they may find to be somewhat unhinged, those people are predicating a far-right trope based on anti-Semitism. And I could prove that with academic papers, for example, with academic professors such as Joan Brune, who's been doing 30 years of studies on hate topics. So my question to you is: do you believe that individuals that push this narrative of woke, do you believe that is a true narrative?
It's such a broad question. Like,
okay, so let me pinpoint it down to you. I know you've seen this before because I've seen your debates with in your discussions and your tweets from people like Sargon of Akkad and people who perpetuate this notion of cultural Marxism, like Jordan Peterson, from what you earlier mentioned. Do you not see a correlation between how people on the right use the label woke into correlations with what people are predicating as cultural Marxism?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. So, but you have to. That's why it's important to put those things in context.
Yeah.
When Sargon is out there using woke, yeah, he's adopting. He is trying to envision or trying to. What's the word we're looking for?
So
he's trying to call upon these really, really bad tropes, anti-Semitic tropes, these cultural Marxism tropes.
So, do you agree or disagree that some people on the left are adopting those same tropes in regards to their own lingo?
Yeah, but if they're adopting that into their lexicon, and they're probably using it to mean something very different. So that's why I don't.
I disagree, and I'll explain why I disagree with that. In regards to, I'm gonna be very specific here because I'm kind of like shadowed right now because I've been recently doxxed, but that's a long story. But let me put it like this: in regards to the situation, do you know who Armin Navabi is?
That sounds really
Atheist
familiar.
Republic.
Yeah, I'm 70% sure I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Armin Navabi recently did a video around, I would say 4 weeks ago, and where he did the title of the video, I recommend everyone, including yourself, to look at it, and what is woke. In that video, he clearly defines what he says as what he defines as woke. He states clearly the anti-Semitic conspiracy theory of the Frankfurt School of critical theory. Yeah. He literally does that in the video. And basically what I'm trying to get at, Jangles, you have to comprehend there are many people on the left that are perpetuating this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and they have co-opted. And I'm going to be blunt here. I know you're going to disagree. Vosh is one of those people. This is one of my main criticisms of Vosh. I have defended him many times. You can ask any of the guys here that I have defended Vosh many times in the past. But when I confronted Vosh in regards to my criticism of him platforming Armin Navabi, who spread this anti-Semitic conspiracy, he just brushed it aside. He just hand-waved it like, I don't care. And that's the problem I have with certain individuals on the left. They are hypocrites. They don't want to address the anti-Semitic tropes that they are even themselves perpetuating to this day. And I could show factual evidence of this basis. So with that being said, that's all I have to just wanted to bring up to you, Jangles.
Okay. Hey, if you ever want to talk more in depth,
absolutely.
Yeah. You can try to get contact me on Twitter.
I usually do things on Discord. That's where I usually talk to Vadim in the past. So
sure, you can.
I'll be happy to share all my sources, all my 2 years of research on this, being previously alt-light, just to to give you
Sure.
a retrospect.
Definitely.
So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hit me
thank
up
you
on
for your
Discord.
time, Jangles.
Yeah, no problem. All right, y'all. I think I'm about to get off. Is there any last questions? Any last thing you wanted to hit on?
No, I mean you've mentioned where people can find you. That's the important thing. Well, it's one of many important things. The other important thing is Among Us. Now,
That is the other important thing. Among Us is really fun.
yeah,
And crime and
That's really the
You're
thesis
such a
of this
liar.
entire stream.
in Among
Jangles,
Us.
I do have one question. Are you a console or PC gamer?
Yes.
Both.
I got-
So
I
what
got-
do
I
you
got-
what
I
do you
got PS4.
primarily focus on? I'm a console gamer.
On both, I play a lot of Overwatch, and I hate every second of it. I just want, for some reason, I just want to get really, really angry for about an hour and a half.
So the reason why I'm asking is I'm an Xbox fangirl, so that's the reason why I'm saying I'm asking if like you're a console person, because a lot of people are PS4, and I gotta throw shade on you. If
I'm
that's
sorry, I got a PS4
Oh, I gotta throw
So I
shade.
got-
Shade.
Well, hey, I got Last of Us 2. What do you got?
I have Xbox a Game Pass with Last of Us 2, all 3 chapters for free. So hey,
Well, I guess that's fair. All right, y'all. I want to let you go.
take care, Jangles.
And yeah, we will talk
All right,
later.
say
Thanks
hi.
for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, and I'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Talk. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Hello, my friends.
Hello.
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 So I wanted to just bring that up really quickly because I know Jangles had to go, but I hope I get a chance to extend my conversation with him on that because I had a really fruitful conversation with Vadim. This is the biggest criticisms I have with many people on the left. This is one of the reasons why I'm kind of like in the middle road between people like Vosh, the dirtbag left, and the people on the other side of the left, the more pragmatic atheist or the more pragmatic people on the left, because I'm not as pragmatic as they are. There is this big narrative being pushed about by leftists. It's really bothersome for me. And I'm amazed that all the people I've talked about on this haven't mentioned it once, and it's disheartening for me.
Yeah, one of the things is, there's, I always get the impression from what other people have talked about, the sort of divide and conquer mentality of the far right when it comes to stuff, and getting woke to be popular amongst the left. I can see why some people are afraid that stuff means. I mean, sometimes that gets extrapolated to the worst or whatnot, but like,
Yeah, see, one of the things I've been noticing is people don't understand the convolution that happens. Is a lot of people don't comprehend that. Yes, they may mean a distinct point on what they describe as woke, but they don't understand that if they have a large audience, if they hear the word woke, like for example, if I say the word atheist, the word atheist can predicate on different meanings to different people. If you talk to a Christian apologist, an atheist is someone who could be a communist or whatever in regards to the spurge that comes to their mind. But if you talk to a person on the left that is a skeptic and you say that you're an atheist, well, that just means that you're a non-believer. That that could be encompassing a whole slew of different categories. So when someone labels someone as a pejorative of woke, there's not a clear determination. Are they talking about a specific segment of the left that they find to be rational, or are they talking about the cultural Marxism, pejorative woke? And a lot of their audience, I would argue, don't comprehend the distinction between those two notions.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to framing arguments, that's always an important aspect. That people understand the meanings that you're trying to convey. That's why it is genuinely important for you to be clear about those things. You can't just start spouting rhetoric and expect everyone to see the rhetoric in the exact same way. I mean, I know Destiny does this a lot, and there's a lot of problems with Destiny. Destiny is really had fuckloads of bad takes lately. His takes have gotten slowly worse and worse, which is not good. But when it comes to like liberal, what liberal means, it means different depending on where you are in the political spectrum. Like, I mean, I would be considered liberal by most people in America, but far people in the far left, it would be, I wouldn't be considered liberal because I'm not that particular type when it comes to
well, yeah,
my political philosophy.
I got yelled at, and someone said, "Well, you can't be left. You can't call yourself a leftist if you believe in capitalism." Well, first of all, I don't believe in capitalism, but that's not really the point. And but why? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, are they working on this? Capitalism is like Tinkerbell. If you don't believe in it, it'll die.
So if I can just mention this quick, so you have, so in regards to what you just said, Christy, this is kind of from an outsider's perspective, which I think is very, very good from my vantage point. But there is a correlation going on that if you look at the far right or you look at the right wing, for example, and this is one comment that I generally agree with Vosh on, that the right has an easy time correlating with one another in regards to their rhetoric. So, for example, you have the far right, the alt right. They have no problems having close ties with people like what's his name? God, I forgot the guy's name, Ben Shapiro. So you'll have a guy like Ben Shapiro who will have no problem, even if he's Jewish, having close ties, perpetuating an alt-right narrative at all. There's no confliction there. But when it comes to the left, since in my opinion we are more principled when it comes to some of our notions, the division between the plurality of what we advocate for makes that division more pronounced and more perceivable by everyone else, if that makes any sense. So when you have one side, for example, the dirtbag left, I hate that term, but the dirtbag left, and they basically disagree with like the quote unquote SJWs, people like EOT on the other side, they both have valid points. Just in my opinion, the dirtbag left tend to basically adopt far-right rhetoric far more easily than the other individuals. That's why I lean more toward the SJW side, quote-unquote, than I do the dirtbag left side, because at least they try to adhere to some form of humanist principles that I try to stick to.
I mean, yeah, that's actually a fair breakdown of some of why there's the amount of division that there is when it comes to rhetoric.
Well, but see, it's predicated on the notion that a lot of people on, like, for example, and I'm not trying to use this individual because I generally don't have any disfavor toward this individual, like EOT. A lot of people on the centrist side of the left, the enlightened centrist types, they generally do not like EOT. And a lot of their criticism, in my honest opinion, from my perceptions, is incredibly unfair. One of the big criticisms I've addressed many times in public is I think EOT sometimes can be overly aggressive to the point where it will come off either too brash or too brazen. But a lot of their points are valid. And that brazenness, that aggressiveness throws off a lot of people. And that's a huge problem for me. This is kind of like, did you guys see this big thing about them burning or eating the Quran recently? Did you guys see about that?
No.
No.
I heard something about it.
Yeah, so Armin Navabi and the Apostate Prophet recently, about a month ago, went on live stream with a Christian apologist known as Act 17 Apologetics. I forgot that guy's real name, but he runs that channel. Them three all decided to go eat a page of the Quran. And then you had Hemet Mehta criticize them on Twitter for why would you do this? If you claim that you're about discourse, if you claim you're about discussion, about debate, trying to have a valid conversation in good faith, people see, one of the things I don't understand is people don't grasp that if you start off with a conversation or a notion that is so far gone, so harsh, so brash against notions that people see them with themselves, you're going to just do nothing more than shut down discussion, shut down any form of discourse that you may have between one party and the other. And I don't understand how certain individuals don't comprehend that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, although, and I think some of that relates to generalization and with some people, their life sucks, and because of that, it's easy to make you hyper aware of who might be, for lack of a better term, the simplification people make of a bad person, and then everything gets shoved in there. So
yeah, see, I want to be very distinct that when I say that, for example, the term far left, realistically, let's be honest here, there really is no far left. There are no active communists. Like, even if you're a communist yourself, I would still argue, even if you advocate for a communist position, you're still not far left. Because you're not, like, people, when I consider them far left, and again, you could say that this is a form of a no true Scotsman. That's fine. Maybe you could define them in that way. But for me, the way I perceive it is, these individuals who are really far left are people like, what are they? The Nazbols, the National Bolsheviks. You know what I mean? The people that
tankies.
Tankies.
See,
yeah.
I see tankies as almost
fascist. I think of them as fascist.
They are fascist by every notion.
I tend to think of them as pseudo left, almost like.
There's an actual term that actually came up in the 90s, Alex, that you probably don't know about, but it was coined the new right before they came out with the alt right. There was also a term that came out in the early 2000s called the new left, and that's where the Nazbols came in. Then they changed it to tankies and all that stuff nowadays, but it was coined the new left back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would argue that nobody really is far left, because most of the things people advocate for, even if you have a person like Vosh doesn't advocate for anything in general principle than probably a democratic socialist would advocate for. He, like, most people don't advocate for like a complete revolutionary destruction of the United States.
Wait, Vosh is a Demsoc.
No, he's an anarcho-syndicalist.
Which is a Demsoc, which is it's another name for it.
No.
It's okay. It's so close on the chart because I'm a Demsoc. I'm a Demsoc, and we have the same views.
Anarcho-syndicalism advocates for a syndicalist type state, and where it's run by anarchy. So basically, an individualized state would have no centralized form of government, and where a democratic socialist would have a centralized form of government. That's a clear distinction.
Not necessarily, because it would be dependent on the corporate of what is the is business structure. So Demsoc in certain respects, including in mine, would be individual would be not quote unquote seizing the means of production, but although yes, but would be a version of each individual business would be able to run on its own, with the workers having the say in the way the business is run, which is roughly what he advocates for. Now, mine's a little bit different, but yes, it is still different.
I agree that's what he advocates today, because he is not a consequentialist, but not a pragmatist, but he believes that things should happen over time. There's an actual term for that in philosophy, and it really passes me off. But that's not a consequentialist, but
Gradualist.
yeah.
like a gradualist, yes, but there's a word for it. But that's what he advocates for, but he has stated in his own live streams multiple times, because I've watched them, and where he states what he would see in the ideal system many, many years in the future. So he doesn't advocate strictly for a democratic socialist state. He actually advocates for an anarcho-syndicalist state, which is a fundamental, there's a large distance between anarcho-syndicalism and democratic socialism. There's a big distinction there.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of, it's hard not to have that view. The general gradualism, because for instance, in terms of general government style, I would probably fight more for something at least economically closer to mutualism, but even that is a temporary sort of thing. That's just to try that's just until once capitalism is no longer necessary, because people grew up with capitalism, so it's very hard to break that. I mean, we've been taught nothing but capitalism. Like, to get rid of it entirely seems like something that can't happen quickly.
Well, it seems entirely unnatural. How would you keep score?
Yeah.
Well, how would you keep score on what, Perfict?
I don't know.
I said it seems entirely unnatural. How would you keep score?
In regards to
Capitalism is keeping score.
You give up capitalism.
Oh. Well, see, I guess the only thing when it comes to the predication on that is you have to look at how the transition will occur in society. Like I like for myself, I'm a federalist, so that's what the type of government I've been researching and I generally agree with. And you know, for me to advocate for that style of government, it's something that would take gradually over time. We already have a predication toward it in society today, especially here in the United States, but there's still be massive steps we would need to take to be able to approach it in a more fair and balanced perspective. But in regards,
funnily enough, Canada is far more federalist than we are.
Oh, absolutely. But the form of federalism I agree with is kind of like a hybrid between between syndicalism and the federalist system we have today in the United States, in where we wouldn't have a three-party or a three-tier system of checks and balances. It would only be two. So you would have the syndicalist states, or the form of government in the socialist states, and where they would be all individually have equal power to the actual centralized power, but the centralized power wouldn't have really a measure of forte when it comes to advocating for policy. Their whole contingent would be about arbitration. So there would be like two segments of the government, of the centralized government. You would have the actual states, and then you would have the judiciary branch. That's it. The judiciary branch would be only there to arbitrate if there was ever a disagreement where it would be a stalemate.
I can see the potential use of that. Obviously, with regards to everything, transparency just needs to be more of a thing.
Yep.
Because transparency kills corruption, and obviously at least in terms of policy, needs need to be taken care of as much as possible.
I don't think that transparency kills corruption. I used to until Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is not transparent. He's like the opposite of transparent.
No, he's very transparent.
He's lying
exactly
constantly.
I actually constantly. Well, Christy, don't take this the wrong way, my friend, but I actually disagree with you here, and I don't think he's transparent. He he's he obfuscates more often than you would imagine. Even if he is upfront in regards to a lot of his notions. Like, for example, I'll give you a good measure of this. Like Donald Trump is a huge person that predicates and advocates for the conservative Christian base in regards to the evangelicals. But a lot of people, including a lot of psychologists, state they think Donald Trump's an atheist, or at least he's irreligious. Yet he predicates this evangelical base at a constant basis to, booster his voting block, especially in this upcoming election. But remember, Donald Trump was a Democrat for over 10 years. He to me, I have a hard time fathoming a person like Donald Trump going from being a Democrat for 10 years during the war years in Iraq to all of a sudden shifting completely far right. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's like saying that a person can go from a full-blown Catholic priest to a full-blown atheist in a matter of 10 years. It's possible, but it's very hard for me to assume a person like Donald Trump would be able to do that reasonably.
Oh,
I think you misunderstood what I meant by
possibly
very, very transparent. I mean, he basically he tells you the truth, but it's most of what, as much as he lies, and he does lie a lot, they're easy to figure out, and when it's something that's important to him, like being racist, he's quite upfront about it. And he has always been racist. It's not like a new thing.
Yeah.
But see, the reason why I'm saying is more obfuscated, I think the racism we see from Donald Trump today is just the shell. It's just the skin level. I actually think Donald Trump's the type of person that if you spoke to him in private, he says the N-word. He's the type of person like he will call the Hispanic people the Hispanic pejorative, like the SP word. I'm not going to say it here, but yeah. I can see Donald, we have his sister, even if they are, you could take it with a grain of salt, seeing that Donald Trump does say these things. So I think that the portrayal that we see of Donald Trump today is just a facade to who he truly is. I think he's more of an outspoken racist. I would even argue probably to the borderline of being even close to a ethno-statist than a lot of people grasp that he is.
I think one of the reasons why his base likes him is his racism.
Yeah, I think that there's when Donald Trump says, I'm going to build a wall. No, I really mean it, a real wall with real bricks. It's going to be a wall. A physical wall. He doesn't mean a physical wall. And his supporters really understand he wasn't talking about a physical wall. He was saying, I really and actually am going to have a authoritarian and even punitive immigration program. That's what he was promised.
Yeah, but when you're talking about someone, so maybe I wasn't clear. When I'm talking about transparency, I mean the lower ranks of the military level of transparency. I mean, you know exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and all that stuff. With Trump, he does stuff you don't know what he's going to do. He seems to, he lies.
It's like there's a horse in the hospital.
Well, I'll give you a good example of, in a way where I kind of agree and disagree with you, Alex, and I'll give you an example.
Sure.
If you look at the situation that occurred with Syria, there was a recent news article by multiple publications, so I find it to be somewhat credible, no matter how much you want to criticize the mainstream media, about Donald Trump wanting to assassinate the Syrian president al-Bashar. So this was just recently published a week ago. So during our missile strikes, Donald Trump actually he kind of jested that he wanted to do an airstrike against the Syrian president to do a political assassination of a country, of a domestic rival. And we didn't learn about this until, like I said, a week ago. And this is 2 years ago. And if we all agree that a lot of the things that, for example, that happened during the Obama years, we are just listening. We didn't know about Obama's drone strikes. We didn't know about Obama deporting so many immigrants and and creating a lot of these camps that we currently see by ICE and all the increase of ISIS function by Obama. We didn't learn about these things until after 2016. And what I would say is the same thing would apply toward Donald Trump. A lot of the things that we're seeing in the light today is nothing but a glimmer to what was actually happening behind the scenes. Like that whole situation about, what was it, the kids or the people, the women were getting cut or the tubes tied at the whatever the gynecologist is disgustingly doing.
It's a radical hysterectomy.
Yeah. And we heard about this was claimed to have happened in 2018. Yeah. And we are just now hearing about it. So what I'm saying is, even if you perceive these things to be transparent, like Trump being outspoken racist, whatever, I think it's a lot worse than we're actually seeing right now. And this is why it's so fundamentally important that we get rid of Trump as much as possible, not only because of RBG Ginsburg just passing away, but also because I think that when Trump does leave office and we eventually the left just get back into the power, we're going to see such a massive uptick of information getting leaked about what Trump really did behind the scenes. It's going to truly change the core of our country. Just mark my words, guys. We haven't seen anything of what Trump has probably actually done until probably a few years from now. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just yeah, I mean, that's in general. I mean, I agree. I mean, yeah, he's openly racist, but that wasn't what I was trying to say when I was trying to say transparency. I meant like you being aware of everything the government does. The what's being done.
Yeah, I just don't think that we even have a glimmer. I think we don't even know 2% of what the government's actually doing, like you just said. I don't think there's any measure of transparency we currently have right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and yeah, Trump lies still, and even though they're bad lies, if people want to believe something bad enough, they'll believe him.
Well, look at the Queen. Okay. Look at the. What's that? Perfect?
We're finding out right now that 2 years ago there was an operating program of eugenics being practiced in the immigration department.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. How is it that it's 2 years old that we're not finding out about it and it's still going on?
Yep. That's what I'm saying. I have
it's not even the lead on the news.
And like I said, I have a strong indication once Trump. This is why it's so important that Biden gets elected, even if I think Biden is a horrible candidate. Once Trump leaves, what's that?
He's not, but that's all right.
No. In comparison to like Bernie Sanders, I think he's a horrible candidate. But I do agree that he has a lot of progressive tax policies and stuff that I do find to be very good. So don't contrive whatever. Anyways, what I'm saying though is I just think that once Biden takes office, within the segment of a year to two, we're going to see a lot more information that's truly going to discuss, and I would even argue it's going to even discuss a lot of the Trump supporters to the point where if this information comes out, it will either destroy the Trumpists or it will make Trumpists look so bad that it will pale in comparison to white supremacy, in my honest opinion.
Well, I disagree with you there. So I think there's been a lot of campaigning to dehumanize Hispanic people, and I think that's a good way for people to you need to be disgusted by this stuff. You have to see the person as a human being in every facet, like deep down in your bones. You have to feel like they're a human being. And the more dehumanizing that goes on, the easier it is for someone to not be as disgusted as they rightly should be by horrible acts that go on.
Are we talking about Trump or the Trump supporters?
The Trumps. I'm talking about like a mixture of both. I mean, like you're talking about when you're talking about campaigning, like people get affected by dehumanizing rhetoric and can get into that mentality. So yes, the Trump supporters to some degree are less likely to view Hispanic people as human beings and instead viewing them as an other. That limits how disgusted you're going to feel about it, because to some degree, if you label someone an other, you're not going to feel like the situation is as real as it is.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Alex. And there is a factor of dehumanization that's going on among conservatives today. But what I'm saying is, I would argue that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is just it becoming more surface. I think the dehumanization that we've been seeing as of late has been going on for 20 years since Bush after September 11th. It's more prevalent now. We are just seeing it more up front and more just bold. It's like it's bolstering the white nationalists and stuff. Like this whole, if you want a good correlation, what I'm trying to say is look what happened with this entire narrative of cultural Marxism. It wasn't until like 2015, 2016, until Jordan Peterson started making this narrative more mainstream. This narrative has always been in the background. And I would say the same thing correlates when it comes to the bigotry from conservatives, that this bigotry, it's always been going on in the background. This is common sense, of course, but not at the level that we currently perceive today. I'm saying is that what we're seeing today has been going on for 20 years. Like we just are it's more visible today than it has been 20 years ago or for the past 20.
What was I gonna put up? Bring up. Sorry, not put up. I mean, it's been going on so much, and we've just been finding out about all the black people killed by police, the amount of white nationalist, the sympathy or sometimes outright support of white nationalism by police officers and members of the
let's not even
ICE.
get started with Oregon. What you just said correlates with what have you guys been keeping up with what's been going on with the police force in Oregon?
That's the fucking kid with a gun, right?
Well, that was a culmination of it, but there's been more and more documentation, more people recording it, and more stories coming out. But basically, the police force in Oregon has been actively supporting the militias up there, and a lot of the militias are part of the whatever they call the Patriot Prayer, whatever. And a lot of the police are just giving a blind eye to a lot of these militias. And it's been a bit, but the truth is though, I've done research on this, but if you look at the actual indications, this has been going on in Oregon, in Idaho, in that area in Washington for almost 30 years. I'll give you an example. A lot of people don't know this, but do you guys remember Timothy McVeigh, right?
Yeah.
Timothy McVeigh had associates, and one of his associates was near the state of Idaho. There's a large white supremacist base in the southern Idaho, eastern Oregon, southeastern parts of Washington state. There's a huge swath there in that border area of white nationalism. And one of Timothy McVeigh's allies was shot during a federal shooting in that area in Idaho. But the thing about it happened is the reason why he escaped, or one of Timothy McVeigh's accomplices escaped, is he was assisted by some of the white supremacists, including some of the police officials at the time, to be able to escape. And that's how he hid for so long before he was finally found by the federal government. So it was the feds who took him down. It wasn't the state or local law enforcement.
Yeah.
So this has been going on since the 1990s. The police assisting white supremacists, especially, like I said, in places like Oregon and Idaho. It's a huge problem.
Yeah, and that's why the police needs to be completely restructured. A lot of the people need to be fired. People need to not... police officers get fired for doing the right thing oftentimes. Police officers aren't allowed in if they're too intelligent. There's just so many wrong things. So many. There are just so many problems that have been going on forever, and we just haven't heard it.
Well, yeah, that's why the feds were involved in the ongoing investigation that led to Ruby Ridge, was because the local law enforcement wasn't investigating. They were of the impression that the local law enforcement.
So Perfect, you've heard of it. Perfect's heard of this. Then he knows exactly what I'm talking about because he just did it by name.
Yeah, no, it's fucked up.
I do want to mention to you guys that I'm going to be shadowing on Twitter for a while and on social media, because what's that?
Yeah, I was just
Well, I told this to another person on Twitter on Discord earlier, but I was doxxed by.
Earlier. Why? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was doxxed by. I'm not going to name him here, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to say a transmedicalist, a follower of a transmedicalist, doxed me, and I'm not going to go. But I'm pretty sure that me telling you that, Alex, you can comprehend who I'm talking about. But I'm not. Don't gesture here.
There are so many transmedicalists. I've just listened
the one
to
that we've talked about in length and private about.
J.K. Rowling doxed you?
No, yeah.
I'm only.
No, J.K.
Yeah,
Rowling.
I know.
Okay, leave it at that. But anyway, so yeah, my personal information was put out there even beyond what I already knew. People that I live in Arizona, beyond that. So I just decided, I'm not going to deal with this. I just cut off my account, deleted everything, and was done. So.
Yeah.
Second time in my life this has happened.
And like, stay safe. Like.
Oh, I have a Mossberg 12 gauge. I'm not too worried about staying safe. So I'm not really worried about.
Well, at the very least, emotionally safe. I don't know where I was going. I care about people and tell people to stay safe and take care of themselves.
Yeah.
I almost said too much. People should hear that. Anyways,
Well, that'll teach you to go out in public being all liberal.
So, unrelated, things are starting to hit towards closing time. And now I have closing time stuck in my head as a song.
Closing time. Yeah, same.
Every new beginning.
You guys are evil.
There was actually a song from a guy named on YouTube called Pogo. He did a song 4 years ago called Data and Picard. I've had that song stuck in, like, I listened to it one time because I'm a big Star Trek fan. I've had that song stuck in my head for the past month. It's ridiculous. That dude made the most hypnotic song. I'm gonna probably have to link it to you guys so you guys get it stuck in your head.
Sure.
What is stuck in my head right now is Sarah and the Safe Word, Louisville Shuffle, which is one of the chorus is R.I.P. to the me that you had in your head. And I love this song upon hearing it. Had no idea who it was. I just typed in the various lyrics I could remember because I'm good at remembering songs. And it's like, I was right. This is a trans song. Oh my god, it's perfect. R.I.P. to the music that you had in your head. So by Sarah and the Safe Word. But Sarah and the Safe Word's entire catalog which consists of an EP and an album, is fucking amazing. I actually wrote to Sarah Rose. That's how much I liked it, and I never do that.
So, like I was saying, we are at around wrap-up time. So, Ileani, you said you're ghosting out anyways, and you don't have anything that you want to promote because you've gone more words. You know, the word when you're retired for the most part from YouTube status, except occasionally something pops up once in a great while. If you feel like if you care about it enough. But I know you're not as focused on promotion. Right. I'm correct on this, right? Ileani?
Yeah, I'm ghosting. So
yeah. So perfect. Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me here. I this is my big gig, but otherwise I'm on Discord at the Rumpus Room a lot.
Hey, Perfect, if I can just throw something out there, I really want you to throw, I know you're not on social media at all, but if you have some way of method of getting in contact with modern day debates, I would really love to see you do some of the theological debates that they throw out there sometimes. I mean, I think you would do incredibly well. I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Do I need to devil's advocate you and like we can go on a theological debate?
Oh, me and Perfect did that about what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, about theological non-cognitivist. Perfect.
Yeah.
We had a good discussion on that. It ended amicably.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, so make sure to check out the Rumpus Room. It's a nice place.
It's an atheist haven, which is specifically, trans friendly would be a way of putting it, but it's non-binary friendly.
And the cool thing,
not transphobic. That's
and it's a non-transphobic atheist community, which there are a set number of.
And if I can just add this, one of the cool things about the Rumpus Room is I don't know how Perfect does it, but he sometimes has links with discussions with some pretty big names out there. So just wanted to throw that out there from my own experience. So
yeah. That being said, Christy, where can people find you?
Here, Normality, Quake on Twitter. Christy, Abbey. I forgot last week to actually private the three just small performance videos, which I will do when I get home if I remember, because I never remember. Gotcha. And I'll finally put up the thing with Callum this week. I have a long and complicated reason why I stopped doing interviews for a while, and I'm losing it here. Christy Abbey is active again. I will actually be having Justin on next week, not this week. So Thursday after this coming Thursday. I think. Yeah. Yes, that's right. And that's about it. If somebody can yell at Vadim because he never rescheduled with me.
Subscribe to Christy. She makes great music and she's a beautiful person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And is that about it? And if so, I shall go and You can find me on Talking to Nothing on Twitter. That's Talking to Nothing minus the G. That's where I show up most, although I also show up on, I mean, technically I do like a small bit of usage of the Fluid Voice and Ozma in the Dark. You can find me on Twitch a fair amount now, I think. Oftentimes gaming, although sometimes just talking. I know the conversation I had with Shay recently, and by recently I mean like 4 or 5 hours ago, that was on Twitch. Largely, I know I might play Among Us again, and next week we should continue the conversation about Ariel Scarcella. Is that, fuck, I can't remember her
Dear
last
God.
name.
That's
Yeah.
her name, and
Yeah, so we are talking about we're continuing the conversation about her. It was it had gone on too long for us to do there were 3 videos prepped. We got through one because there was a lot to say about how wrong she was. And the
yeah, that
various,
was pretty bad.
conversations. But yeah, so that'll show up next week. The Monday after this Monday. Next Monday is in the Monday. No, sorry. Sometime next week. My brain. It's not working. And I am trying to do what I'm trying to do from just to get a regular charity stream up every last Wednesday of the month, and try to get some crowdfunding charity helped. That plan is I'm still planning on going through with that, just monthly 12-hour charity streams, just to try to help out a bit. And you know, I want to. And like, there's obviously the selfish end of the reason. It is beneficial for me, for people to be aware of me, and it's also beneficial for the charity part, and it will go only to the crowdfund during the day of the charity stream, and the day after will go only to the crowdfund, and anything extra or evenly split between the crowdfunds. And if it's more than up to the point of what they listed that they needed. And then,
So this is going to be on the 30th of September, Alex. That's the last Wednesday. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, and like it, I don't expect it to be very successful, if successful at all. The first one, but I want to do it every month regardless, just to keep a habit of it, and just to have somewhere to go. Just, I don't know, to help out, and because I want to, and because someone on Twitter said it was okay. So here's how this started. And we'll briefly mention, because as brief as I can. There's a Twitter conversation, and I half jokingly was like, because someone was like, there was a conversation about larger trans Twitter accounts like not doing charity streams or whatnot, and the person was like, I do it, but with like 10,000 Twitter followers or whatever, and they were like, I would do it, but some reason, like they wouldn't feel comfortable, whatever number of reasons. And then I replied to that with, I would do it, just give me all your followers, which was like a half joking reply. And then they said follower, and then I was just like, well, fuck, I have to do it now. I mean, I don't actually have to, but I want to. I genuinely want to, and I like the idea of it. So I went down that road, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I like retweeting various crowd funds, and I already
Okay.
try to help as much as I can, and I figure I can help a little bit more.
Yeah.
So.
Oh. No.
Can I add something real quick?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I? Don't forget, these guys just have their links for their own sourcing from like Patreon, or I don't know what you guys have, like PayPal or whatever down below. So if you guys want to help support these guys, please do so. Their information's down below.
Yeah. Yeah. If you
And
ever
and
want-
listen
Oh,
to
sorry.
Sarah. Listen to Sarah in the safe word. I have no financial interest in this, or even personal interest in this. I just think Sarah in the safe word is awesome. So that's it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Suppose I'll come back for the last few seconds.
So mentioned that stuff. So your voice matters, your mind matter, you matter? Is that it?
Eventually,
What?
your voice matters, your life matters, and your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter.
And
Okay.
identities matter.
Yeah. And have
Well,
a
that
good
too,
one.
but that's
Bye.
Guten Tag.
Peace.